Okay, so first of all, I think we probably have a huge range of ability in here in terms of people that are maybe familiar with World Taekwondo Federation standard Poomsae and maybe people that might be new to. How many people here have been to my seminars here before? Okay. How many people have attended any World Taekwondo Federation seminar, Poomsae seminars? Okay. One more question, just so I can kind of get a feel for everybody. How many of us out here are kind of new to the Poomsae standard as it's being changed? Okay, very good. The Poomsae, when I talk about the Poomsae standard, I'm talking about the way Poomsae is, sport Poomsae is going to be judged at, well, it's already being judged at a world level, and is being judged at a national level, and it is filtering down, and as you see some of the USAT qualifiers, state championships, things like that, that's how Poomsae is going to be judged. Unlike the old paradigm, and I think there's a page in your packet that just kind of touches on that a little bit, where we would call just kind of our slang is the one and done, where we used to go out and do a Poomsae, you do just your Poomsae at your rank, and everyone in the division would do the same Poomsae. They'd hold up scorecards. Most of the time, have no idea how they arrived at that number. They usually picked an average, and they chose the number based on, well, that person was a little bit better than the last one I just saw, and everybody gets compared to each other. The other page in that packet has a breakdown of the actual divisions. And not to get into too much detail because we could talk all day about that, but the Poomsae that you do is based on your age, not based on your rank. And this is for black belts. Now there are developmental color belt divisions at USAT Nationals, and those are constantly being shifted. But basically speaking, you have a range of Poomsae that you're responsible for. And they will pick one from the preliminary, two from the final selection if there's a semi, and then the remaining two for final, depending on how many people are in that division. If it's a small division, less than 8 people, they'll go right to a final, and they'll just pick 2 from that upper 4. Now, the basics of scoring, and once again, I am just touching on this because I could talk about scoring for the next 8 hours. The international referee seminars are 5 days long, and there's hours and hours dedicated each day just to that. So as a general rule, what we basically have is 2 main categories. We have accuracy and presentation. Accuracy is the absolute technical part of the way it is scored. That would be, for instance, if it was a middle punch and it's off a little bit, that's a 10th point deduction. Wrong target area completely, half-point deduction. And those deductions are taken in real time. Now that might be a little bit different depending on if they were using paper scoring or using electronic scoring. Obviously electronic scoring is far more efficient, and there's a few different software programs out there, and there's more being developed all the time. The ones that were used over the past year, they basically are used as a laptop, and the judges will sit, watch the form, and as you're doing the form, without looking down, they'll either take a 10th, half, whatever deduction they see in terms of the accuracy. When the competitor is finished, and as they leave the ring, that's when they'll go to the presentation category. And within that category, there are 5 different subcategories. Okay, and those are volume of movement, power and speed, balance, rhythm, tempo, sync, and expression. And I'll go back and talk about those. First of all, volume of movement, first and foremost, would be the amount of distance the block would travel. So using an inside middle block as an example, we see a lot of people where, where I first learned that real tight chamber and the block would just come that far. That's not displaying volume of movement. Volume of movement is a nice big distance, nice open position, and that's one of the reasons why Coach Naves was so adamant about opening up those shoulders, because if you have a lot of tension, they're going to have difficulty doing that. So volume of movement is how much distance that the block is actually traveling. That's also falls under the category of general athleticism. The kicking, for instance. Now, kicking is done to the face. All kicks, with exception of choreo, which is we have a low side kick and that double side kick. Okay. or otherwise noted. If the kick is from the clavicle up to 1 fist distance above the head, right here, there's no accuracy deductions taken. If it's lower than that, it's a tenth, it's a tenth, it's a tenth. Once the kick reaches down here, they can take as much of a half-point deduction. Now, if it's at all above the fist, that's a half. Okay, so you see people that get like the vertical kicks, that's actually a half-point deduction because there's no target area up here. Target area is here. That's accuracy. Now, presentation, I could have a really nice face-level front kick, but if I don't chamber the kick and rechamber it properly, and I don't show good control over that kick, then my presentation score would suffer in that category. Okay, and that would be basic volume of movement. Power and speed, I think that's kind of obvious. If a movement is supposed to have power and it's lacking power, then that score within that category would be a lower score. Now, speed isn't always how fast the block is. Some movements are meant to be slow. Slow-moving blocks, and the person does it too fast, that would be a lower score within that category. Balance is not just balance up on one leg. Great example is in Kundan, when we see people come here and they start to shake a little bit. That means that score in that category is going to be less. Balance is also when a person hits a position, are they solid or do they step out and kind of have what we call that residual movement, where you see people where they kind of continue to move for a second. That would fall into that category as well. Rhythm, tempo, and sync. That category encompasses multiples, okay, pairs and teams, whether they're in good synchronization with each other, and also just the general tempo of the form, because every form has a particular tempo to it, a particular timing. It's like music. And that would also fall into that category. Now the last one, where it says expression. There's different names. I've heard people put different names on this category. Expression of key, competitor's presence and appearance. And basically that's that last category where the difference in a competitor, it's one of those things where I kind of have to show you rather than describe it, and we've all seen it. We can have two different competitors side by side doing exactly the same kumse, and one's got eyes down here, kind of has that expression on their face, posture is very meek, and then the next person comes out in a very proud position, very confident. That person's score is going to be much higher in that category. Now the appearance is also taken into consideration. Now at a world level, they actually take you through an inspection where there's only certain dobaks that are allowed. Belts can't be too long. Can't have patches and things all over the dobak. And that they would take those deductions right away in that category. Now, basically, if you took my seminar 4 months ago, I would have told you that that is 50-50 between those two accuracy and presentation categories. And it has been since 2006. However, I'll let everybody in here know, as of a couple months ago, they are talking about making that 60-40 in terms of presentation to accuracy. Yes?
The reason that is not really changed yet, because they can't figure out how to do it.
Yeah, it's new.
Yeah, it's like we'd love to make it 60-40, but we don't know how to score it 60-40. 50-50 has been simple, right? So until they figure it out, 50-50 is still the application.
Yes. So if nothing changes next year, then that's just because they haven't worked out all the little wrinkles to it. I'm just letting you guys know if all of a sudden next year at Nationals you see where the scoring system is a little bit different and it's more heavily weighted toward presentation, that's why. And part of the reason for that is because everyone's getting better. The world is getting better. If you look at world championships, presentation is everything. Because everybody shows up knowing the standard. Most everyone there is accurate with placement and technique and things like that. Otherwise, they wouldn't be there. So now, where the real game is played is with presentation. So you have to look at accuracy as being more of the ticket that kind of gets you to play at a particular level. And then with presentation is how we win. So I want to talk a lot today about accuracy because I want to make sure that we get everybody on standard. But at the same time, don't get so locked up into, is my fist in exactly the right place? And then forget to have power. Okay? So just keep that in mind. Okay, so what I want to do is I want to get away from scoring a little bit, and what I will do though is as we go through each Kumse, I will identify what would be a half-point deduction or common deductions taken within that form. And I want to go through some general principles very quickly, starting with basic stances. And I'm not going to, once again, I'm not going to take too much time to do this because that's a day in itself. So here's where, if some of you want to take notes, stand up and take notes while you're doing it, or just stand up and do it, go ahead, but you guys can kind of move around me if you want. Now, some of the stances in that packet are